Hey there, sports fans. How are we doing? That's it. It's the end. It's over. It's done. We made it. Kind of. We made it to the end of the regular season of the 2025 Betfred Super League. Welcome to the 10 yards back review of round 27 of the 2025 Betfred Super League. I'm Jim, and I'm going to be talking crap for the next 25 minutes-ish. So, that's what this is. It's my review of the 2025 round 27. So, let's have a look at what the rugby league gods served up for us in round 27. Now, this one was another one of those instances where the rugby league gods had blessed us with a gift. The gift was that the final round of the season had jeopardy. Okay? Now, all through the year, Hull KR have been running away with it, been storming away with it. Points difference massive, league points massive. There's always been this little will they won't they with Wakefield Hull FC, hasn't there, in that sixth spot. Once Saints kind of started battering the little teams, Hull FC and Wakefield had that little to-do, didn't they, in the middle. So, coming into round 27, there were three things up for grabs, three prizes up for grabs. One was the League Leaders Shield itself. Because if Hull KR lose this one, and Wigan really win this one. So basically, looking at this, if Hull KR lose by 20 and Wigan win by 20, it's basically even Stevens, isn't it? It's got to be really close, this one. Top six. That's another amazing prize up for grabs. If Hull FC can pull it off and Wakefield, for some reason, can't do it, then Wakefield are out, Hull FC are in. There's also the third prize up for grabs, which wasn't that big of a deal, really, was the battle for third. Saints kind of shit the bed a little bit. They were definitely always going to end up in fifth. But Leigh and Leeds, 1 point between them, they could have ended up either way. And of course, Leigh, whoever is in that third or fourth position, that dictates who you play in the semis. So that's a prize as well, isn't it? All in itself. So, God, this was looking good. Let's have a look at how the fixtures lined up. Now, at the start of the season, when I wrote down all the fixtures, typed them all out nice and neat for my own little binder, all these fixtures were on a Friday. But hold on. If you look closely at these fixtures, you'll see some of them are on a Thursday. In fact, all of the games in Hull are on a Thursday. The rest of the games are on a Friday. That's not at the same time at all. That's not at the same time kickoff, is it? And that very, very small tweak to the schedule meant that coming into Friday, coming into what should have been round 27 of the Betfred Super League 2025, full of jeopardy, we actually had this situation where we already knew that Hull KR had won the League Leaders Shield, and we already knew that Hull FC weren't going for six. So the only prize that was up for grabs, which was a consolation prize for the fans at best, was who was going to be third or fourth. And when there's three things up for grabs, and that's one of them, that's great. Oh, yeah, it's another thing to follow, another thing to get excited about. But when there's only one thing up for grabs, and that's it, it takes a special rugby league fan to get excited about that, doesn't it? So, I don't know what a gift horse is, but the Super League officials, the brass, well and truly looked that thing in the mouth and said, you can fuck off. We're having these on Thursday. We're going to sort all this out before the weekend even starts, baby. So, coming into the weekend, it was all over. All the jeopardy was finished. Nevertheless, these were my predictions. Now, I didn't do a predictions video because my life's been hectic coming into this. But these are my predictions nonetheless. So this is my review around 2027, not 2027, 27. I'm going to, in usual fashion, go through the games how I saw them. Probably not as much detail because I've had my little rant, haven't I? You know what I thought of the round. What I will say is, and I'll make a plea here, is that if the league had played them all at the same time, the first half an hour of those games, no matter how they turned out, right, when you were watching that for the first half an hour, that would have been so exciting. And I'm going to do a little bit of editing here. You know I never edit this thing. I'm going to do a little bit of editing and I'll overlay them. Up to half an hour, if you look at the battle between Hull KR and Wigan, Hull KR were losing and Wigan was storming away with it. It looked like the league leaders' shield was in jeopardy. The Hull FC Wakefield thing, that wasn't so bad because, you know, Wakefield were losing, I think it was 12-0 on about 20 minutes. Hull FC were up by about 2. But still, it was in the balance, wasn't it? Salford were shocking everyone. Who knew? The battle for third and fourth, all right, I'll leave that. It's not, you know, I've already said what a prize that was. All right. Let's look at the games, shall we? All right, starting not on Friday, on Thursday, we had the race to the top. Those Craven Park Robins, Hull KR playing the wire. Now, I said last week, I think it was, I was sort of praying that Warrington came good. I sort of said they've got one chance to do something in the league, and that was last week. But I was wrong, because they also had the chance this week, and it could have been such a good thing. Warrington basically picked their moment over the past 12 weeks, has it been, that Warrington have been poor, and they pulled the performance out of the bag, didn't they? We had Dufty, we had Kai Taylor-Ray, we had a disallowed try, which was bollocks. Batchelor basically ran into whoever it was, Dufty maybe, I don't know. Batchelor basically ran into him, did the old KR obstruction technique, and got that try disallowed. So the difference really was that disallowed try and the individual actions of one Monsieur Morgue storming down the field on about 75 minutes. Now that was the game itself. It ended up being quite, you know, interesting because of that. I think what you could take away from this, not really anything about Warrington other than like what I said a couple of weeks ago when they played Leigh. Like, what are you doing? A couple of weeks ago they played Leigh. They scored 3 screaming tries in 5 minutes. Right at the end of the match, it was too late. Here, they're holding their own for 70 minutes. You just think, guys, what have you been doing? We've been bored to tears watching your games over the past 12 weeks or whatever it's been. Ever since these two met last in the Challenge Cup final, Warrington have been poor, haven't they? But with Warrington putting on a performance, with that jeopardy almost being there, I think what this game really did was it highlighted the class that Hull KR have and the danger, I'm going to say, in it. Because, and look, a lot of people say this, trying to wind people on. I don't think anyone's really asked. Where was Mikey Lewis in this game? He was there, he was present, but he wasn't the general like always, was he? It was Tyrone May. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, when Hull KR played Leeds, I think it was, Lewis went missing. Not like this game. He had a really poor game. And I was saying that it was hard for Tyrone May to step up and own the game when you've still got Lewis on the field. You'd almost rather he was off the field. But in this game, they worked together, and he almost sacrificed ownership of the game to May, who, to his credit, did a really good job. Scored 2 tries, was it? And assisted a couple more. Really good. And it just highlights the fact that not only can they play different games, they can switch that mid-game as well. So, looking forward to seeing Hull KR in the playoffs. This is where it gets serious, isn't it? They didn't have Burgess here this week. That could have been the difference. Who knows? Also on Thursday, not Friday, with everybody else, was Hull FC and the battle for 6. Similar story here, interestingly, with Catalans just fucking pulling one out of the bag, didn't they? Only they actually did it because Hull was in 6th and not first, like Kayara. It was a pretty even game all in all. The stats, I think, if you look at these numbers that I've got here on the screen, for me, they paint the classic Hull FC picture, and well, the classic of the last couple of weeks, I'll say, not the entire season. It's not indicative of the entire season, but it's where they need to focus on next year, I think. In this game, Hull FC have made more meters, made more carries, missed fewer tackles, done more offloads, but they just haven't done enough with it, have they? If you just looked at the stats without the score, you would assume that Hull FC were going to be the victors in this game because it's, what is it, about 10 to 20% thereabouts. The difference between the two teams in this stats, the particular stats that I've put up and didn't choose them. I've just looked at that now. And 2 of the tries they had as well were pretty lucky. I'm going to say lucky because there was the one where it isn't usually allowed. I don't know why it was allowed this time. Where I can't even remember it. I think it was Briscoe just tapped the ball and caught Catalans sleeping, absolutely sleeping. Harvey Barron just runs basically uncontested down the end of the field. The commentators are bigging it up. Oh, well, that's the class of Hull FC. To me, it was just, well, just give them a chance, will you? They've just, like, there was nothing that, like, there was no real, like, error that meant that Catalans shouldn't have the ball or have an opportunity to defend their line, get back to the 20. So that one was weird. The Martin one, the try scoring expert, Lewis Martin, was very lucky in that Fuad Yaha missed the ball. So the ball was just there, available. But go and watch it again, because my theory on this is that nobody else scores that try. It's only the try scoring expert, Lewis Martin, that scores that try, because he's legging it for that ball. When he sees where it is and that it's actually free, he completely changes his body shape. He turns himself almost 90 degrees so that he's parallel with the dead ball line, and touches the ball down gently, like casually. Nobody else does that. Everybody else just continues to run, tries to touch it down, maybe knocks it on, maybe actually takes it into touch with them as they go. So, yeah, that was a lucky scenario that they found themselves in, but the try wasn't lucky. The try was pure class from the try scoring expert, Lewis Martin. And that's the last time I'll call him that, I think, for the year, isn't it? Or is it? Okay, on to the real final round then. Saints versus Castleford. Last time out, this one was 40-0, so I wasn't bothered about this at all. It actually turned out to be a decent game because Saints were resting a load of players, and Castleford have kind of found their groove, haven't they, over the past couple of weeks. I'm hoping that for the sake of the playoff, for the sake of the league, for the sake of this weekend, fellas, Saints, I'm hoping that the fact that they were changing resting players, is the reason why Castleford scored 3 tries in 5 minutes at the end of the game. I'm hoping that was just a young player thing, a bit of a blip, but because if you look at who Saints were resting, it was the likes of Delaney, Band, Walmsley, Lees, Robertson, Percival. So loads of big players were rested or out for one reason or another. The 2 players they should have rested and didn't were Morgan Knowles, who's pretty key. I think we proved that last week, and Kyle Felt, who's a million years old. And those players both got injured on field. So you can never tell whether someone's going to be injured. We don't know what's going to happen with them. The reason I think, as well, Kyle Feldt should have been rested or at least brought off at some point in the game was because, Saints appeared to be on top of this game for most of the game. But the reason why Saints rested all those players is because the outcome of this game didn't matter in any way. There was no jeopardy on this game. There was nothing on the line. Even coming into the week, even before that spoiler alert Thursday night happened, there was never anything on this game. There was never going to be anything on this game. So Wellens and crew were free to do whatever they wanted with selection. So they rested players because if we lose, it doesn't matter. But instead of saying, if we lose, it doesn't matter, so let's try some new things, let's build some stuff up, let's pull the playbook out and really just practice some stuff, because we've actually got quite a big game ahead of us next weekend when we play Leeds, who are getting back Connor and Miller, who are outstanding players in the league, though unrecognised largely in the England setup and the Dream Team for some reason. So instead what they did was they spent most of the game kicking wide to Feldt, who was always there. Picked it up super cleanly the first time and scored a really casual try. The second time, all right, a little bit more laboured, but that was done. That should have been, ticked off, great, perfect. And now they've practiced the move. They've told the whole league that they're going to do that move. And not only that, but Feldt's fucking injured now, isn't he? So he might not even play next week. So you've been practicing that move, spent a whole game doing it, wasted opportunity doing it, and he's not even going to play, so you can't even do it. Bit of a misstep for me, that one. I would have tried a couple more things around that. But anyway, it was a good game, I thought. It was nice to see Benison get a try in his last Saints performance. I've been a fan of Benison for a while, and the reason I'm allowed to be a fan of Benison is because I know that he's not a winger in his heart. He's actually got a bit more play the ball around him, about him. But he's just not allowed to do it for some reason. I don't know. Maybe we just got too many ball players over at Saints. Highlights the game, or takeaways from the game around Sailor. So Sailor had that weirdness, didn't he, where he was pulled into touch but wasn't in touch because he was actually on top of the cast player. So it was good that he had the wherewithal to know I didn't touch the ground before I threw that ball, so let's throw a captain's challenge at it, because it was pretty reckless, if I'm honest, I thought. So he gets the ball out, not in touch, perfect, great, absolute great rugby. Feldt picks it up, scores a try, and a very, very easy try, waltzes it in, scores the try. But it wasn't allowed because the touch judge had their flag up. The touch judge incorrectly had their flag up. And so you're not allowed to do that. Just, I don't know. I'm sure we've been reviewing footage for hours at a time on the video ref whilst the touch judge is in the background with a flag up. So my question is, why do we bother doing that? Either why do we bother doing that if the touch judge is in the background with his flag up, or why wasn't Feldt to try that night? It doesn't. The two don't marry to me. Whatever, Saints won the match anyway. Another takeaway on Sailor is that Cass scored 3 tries in 5 minutes. Most of the time, it was because Sailor was trying to track the player rather than just defending, attacking him. If particularly, I forget who the player was now. It was one of the tries was under the sticks. I think it was the final one. Sailor's basically just tracking Yates and tracking him and tracking him and tracking him. If he'd have put pressure on Yates, then he probably wouldn't have got that Hail Mary pass away to the centre of the field to, whoever it was. So, just not a defensive fullback. Yeah, fullback's his best position, but do they have to play him? I don't know. Maybe he costs too much money. It's too much embarrassing and to not play him. But there we go. Hopefully onwards for next week for Saints. Hopefully they've been practicing midweek, all those rested players are going to come fresh-faced and ready to go as they play Leeds at the weekend. Okay, another Friday night. I'm going to be honest about this one. I just saw the highlights. I wasn't really bothered about this one. But we got Leigh beating Huddersfield. I can't really comment on this game other than two things. One, I was disappointed to see Burgess get a try because he's ran for like 20 metres all season. He's done nothing. Real money pit that guy's been this season. And two, Huddersfield are better when Wolford is on the pitch. I don't know which way around this is. I don't know if it's Wolford, the player, or if it's just having someone on the pitch who will lead the team. Because Flanagan is the other option, isn't he? Flanagan's the other leader within the team. And I always think that there are two types of leader on a rugby pitch. One is a leader that leads the players, and another one is a leader that leads the ball. So Flanagan leads the ball. He'll put the ball in places that he wants it because he thinks that that's the best place for the ball to be. Wolford will lead the men to where he wants them to be because that's where the game needs them to be. And everyone will understand it. And I don't know if it's just leadership or if it's those players particularly, but they're both very good, of course. Flanagan will get there with that man generalship, but he's just not quite there yet. So when Wolford's on the pitch, it's good. Leigh progressed. They end up third. Wakey Salford, this was another good one. Could have been that half an hour slot that we had of Jeopardy this week that got robbed from us. This was part of it because Salford came out the gates. It was 12-0. 12-0 against bloody Wakefield. And it's the end of the season, Salford, when, Wakefield have got Chimambe back. Derbyshire's gone, I think. Your real skeleton crew over at Salford this week, and they go 12-0 against title contenders Wakefield. Good for you, lads. I think... Well, first off, comments on Wakefield before we go any further. Great performance. They lost Max Jowett in the first 5 minutes, I think. HIA, he's off next week. So you've not got Jowett against Leigh, which is very disappointing for the fans and for the team, for me as a casual fan. But Wakefield fans particularly, they've got Rourke, and I do believe, Rourke is very good. I'm a big Rourke fan. But I think that the Wakefield team with Rourke in it is too similar to a Leigh team. And it's probably not quite as good against a Leigh team. You need Jowett there as that general, like I just said. The man general, the people general. Putting the people where they need to be. Not Rourke putting the ball where it needs to be. So that's Wakefield. Interesting to see what happens next week. I'll talk about that later on in the week. Wakefield dog walked them, but I do think that Salford bowed out with pride, with style. Salford the team bowed out with pride. The Salford fans charged the pitch, and you can look at that and say, well, after the year they've had, good on them, protesting, standing up for what they believe in. But it happens every year. Was every game on last year as well? I think it was. Go watch last year's final match with Salford. I bet they stormed the field. Definitely the year before, where it wasn't televised, they stormed the field. 2022, they stormed the last game of the season. The fans just love fucking getting on the field. So any excuse for him. There's reports coming out of Salford now that the fans have damaged the stadium and stuff. And look, I understand what you think you're doing, some of you, but you're just damaging the club. All right, the owners have to pay for it, but here's the thing. So the owners have to pay for that damage that you've done. What if they don't? What if you've now just got a broken TV in the concourse? What if the stadium is now just worse than it was, and you've just upset things? I don't know. I don't agree with it. No one knows what Salford will be next year. Whether they'll be Super League, whether they'll be Championship. Very high likelihood it's going to be Championship. The Mayor of Salford's getting involved in everything. The fact remains, the team have not applied to be in Super League, and so likely won't be. If they're not, I hope they can get some new ownership in that year. I hope they can keep all the Milnes and keep all the Masters. Unlikely, but I hope they can, because it's been nice, hasn't it, this past couple of weeks? They've stood a chance. They've done something. They've put their name to something, and they've gone well. And good on them. This is obviously about Wakefield, but good on you, Salford. All right, the last match of this weekend. Last match I'll cover. This one flies in the face of my jeopardy argument. I was really looking forward to this match, and it just didn't really deliver, did it? This game was decided by 3 players, and 2 of them weren't on the pitch. 2 of them were wearing their Brad Arthur costumes on the sideline, Jake Connor and Lucky Miller. Bevan French being the other player, who is back, isn't he? He's back, baby. And a Wigan team with Bevan French is twice as good as any other team. It's 10 times as good as a Wigan team without Bevan French. So that's just the way this one went. Quite pedestrian tries, to be honest, but the ball was placed at exactly the right time, exactly when it needed to. So, the likes of, what's his name? He's back, Miski. Kind of waltzed over a little bit, didn't he? It was sort of easy-ish try. Same with Marshall, just side to side. The ball was got out by French at exactly the right time. I particularly liked French's try because Field was sort of just walking in behind him going, hey, bro, you want to do the thing that we do? You want to pass it here and I'll score it? And he's like, nah, I'll just go around him and score the try myself. So Wigan are looking good. They're second place now. They're off next week, of course. Who knows what will happen? I'll do some previews this week of who I think we're going to end up facing in the semis and how I think they'll do. But it's looking good for them, isn't it? 22-6. Leeds just getting one back at the end there. This could have been a great night, guys. This could have been a very exciting opening 30 minutes to the round here. First half of rugby, let's say. All right. So that's the table as it stands. Top 6, Hull KR, Wigan, Leeds, Saints and Wakefield. Bottom 6, the rest of them. So congratulations to Hull KR. There's been this thing where, you didn't win the championship. You 40 years and all that. And what I'll say is, Hull KR won something on Thursday night. They won the League Leaders' Shield, right? They were the only ones that won something on Thursday night. Nobody else did. Nobody won any on Friday night either, to be honest. And unless you're a Wigan fan, you were never going to win anything this weekend. So why aren't you just pleased for him? Just stop hammering on about the definition of the championship and it's League Leaders' Shield's bloody hubcap. Hull KR won it, and they won it well. And it's been exciting to see them win it. So good on you, the Robins. Just win it and maybe go on and win the treble. Wouldn't that be exciting if they did? If they came from essentially nowhere 3 years ago and won the treble in 1 year. First trophy in 40 years, and there's 3 of them, like a bloody bus. All right, top point scorers after the league is done. Max Jowett pipped it with that performance, Wakefield versus Salford. To be honest, if Wakefield had been allowed to play Salford twice instead of a couple of weeks ago, he'd have been there anyway. He'd been well up there. Actually, Max Jowett didn't score any points this weekend because he was injured. So yeah, he definitely would have done it. Honourable mentions here to Lewis Martin, the try-scoring expert, who is in purely on tries. and GAB, who has not played a full season, and he hasn't been in a good team, and yet he's come in somehow at number 8 in the top point scorers for the year. Good on you, young man. I hope you go well next season. Also, top try scorers very quickly. Try scoring expert Lewis Martin up the number 1 with a bullet, beating out Jai Field, Mikey Lewis, Max Jowett, and the Cole KR wings, Davis and Burgess. Tristan Saylor, look at some of those prolific try scorers that this young man, this bloody bugger, has beaten out and beat convincingly most of them. I mean, to pip Jay Field to it, hats off to you, mate. Keep it up. I'm not sure you'll get in the England squad, but you're in our hearts. How about that, eh? Is that good enough for you? I hope so. All right, guys, that was round 27. Bit longer than I wanted it to be, but I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the rad. I hope you enjoyed the league. The regular season is finished. I'll be back later in the week to preview each of the games individually, both preliminary playoff finals individually. So until then, have a good one.